Awesome. Well, hello everyone. My name is Ronen Tamari, and I'm coming down from Boston. I was in town and very lucky to coincide with this awesome meetup. So great to see y'all. We need to up our game in like Boston. We don't have a space like this yet. So I'll tell the people back there. So I'm building Semble, and I'm going to talk about that, but I'm also going to talk about like ecosystem building because Brenda and I talked about what makes sense here and like building in the atmosphere, building apps. Are we building apps or are we building ecosystems? That's what I'll try to be covering today. First of all, just how many of you even know what Semble is?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, I was worried. I don't ever know like if people have used it. How many of you have used Semble or use it?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Great. So I won't go into depth in what Semble is. I'll talk more about the kind of some of the meta stuff and the ecosystem stuff. This is kind of the whole slide deck in one meme, which is, atproto wins by being a killer ecosystem and not killer apps. And I'll talk through some of that. First of all, backstory. I guess I don't really need to go, so people know what Semble is. Most people do. Semble is like Arena on atproto, or like the social layer for all your obsidians. If you wanted to connect obsidians on a social network, what you would use. And if you can try it out here, feel free to scan the QR code. So I'm mostly going to talk about, well, I could show this demo, I guess. Let's see. Do I really need to do this? Okay, so you log in with your Atmosphere account. If you haven't seen Semble at all, then I guess it's helpful to have at least some context. You basically it's like Arena, which is sort of social bookmarking. You organize cards into collections. Everything is shared with your network because it's on atproto, so people see what y'all are curating. And we have a social graph that's separate from the Blue Sky social graph, so it's kind of a little cozy enclave in the atmosphere for knowledge nerds. We have open collections and personal collections, so you can do like collective, collaborative curation. Maybe I'll just share one more thing. One of the features we shipped that we're excited about is connections, which is really kind of leaning into the Obsidian world, where you can not just like bookmark individual URLs, you can also connect between URLs and say something about that connection. So maybe you think something is helpful context. If I'm reading some blog post, you should really know that someone else wrote this like takedown of it and you should be aware of it. So this was a feature we shipped and we didn't really see it in other tools, and we were we didn't know how people would react to it basically, and if people would be excited about it. And the good news is that people seem to like it, and it was really fun experimenting and kind of building in public and getting feedback from people like, how would you like to use it? What kind of relations would you like to see? So I think it really made us, it was just encouraging to know that like the atmosphere crew, like people are just really supportive, and basically we learned that working in public is really, really great and worth it. So that's Semble kind of just in a nutshell. Check it out later if you want to really play with it. I'm going to talk a little about this sort of ecosystem side of things and how that played out. So Semble started, we got a grant from like Open Science Foundations in July in 2025, and we basically have like some kind of runway to build Semble, and we wanted to understand like what are we actually going to build with this funding. We had a road mapping session. This is the team out in Vancouver, and Theo, our faithful dog here, Wes and Puria, and we had like whiteboarding sessions and like what is going to be in scope is, we're going to do cards, we're going to do collections, we have an API. Are we going to do like inline annotations for like highlighting text? Are we going to do a special PDS just for researchers? Are we going to do like ORCID, that's like an academic login ID system? Are we going to support that? Are we going to have private data? So there's tons of things you can build, and we had to figure out what's in scope. And we took advice of like mentors, and it's like launch early and don't wait until try to get the minimum viable launch, like people know that. And we launched in November. We were also fortunate to do this in person. This is us in Boston. We just happened, Wes was out in the East Coast. And that was great. So we launched Semble in November. 2 weeks later, people are already hacking on Semble. We had no idea that this was gonna happen, but the community, again, like awesome energy, hacking energy. People were doing basically we didn't even have an API, and people were just writing to their PDSs and trying to get stuff to work. And like the lexicon and understanding how to make integrations. So that was awesome. In December, we said, okay, it looks like there's a lot of energy around like tools for researchers. Maybe we can start a kind of ecosystem effort for like some house like umbrella for like all these different initiatives, and we started atproto.nyc, which is, it's kind of a weird decision I think in startup land, because it's like, you're building a tool, but are you going to invest energy in like building this ecosystem around it? So maybe not the traditional path, but we did decide to do this. And yeah, and then, so part of this ecosystem work was just noticing, again, there's like a lot of people in the space that are building other cool tools. How many of you know what Margin is? Okay, cool, yeah, people use Margin. Margin is an awesome tool. It's a tool that does annotation, so it's quite similar in a lot of ways to Semble. And Margin started in January sometime, and like one of the first things they did was like, hey, Cosmic, we would like to chat about interop. And we hopped on a call, and 1 month later, we were already doing some kind of interop with Semble and Margin. And that was also really cool because people could suddenly see their Margin activity in Semble and their Semble activity in Margin, which is, again, not things we're used to in like regular kind of Web 2 world, where every app is a silo. March, just coming back, 2 months ago, we were in Vancouver, a lot of us, in the Atmosphere Conf. We organized a conference. Again, this is like a lot of effort to organize. We had a bunch of people, joining. We had talks. We organized people's travel support. It was a lot of work. And again, it's like, should we be investing time in this, or investing time in Semble? But we had some brainstorming sessions there that I think for me were like, wow, this is crazy, because a lot of the things that were on our roadmap suddenly is like, people are going to do them, and we don't actually need to do them because other projects are going to do them. So one of the ideas, if people know Emily from the AstroSky community, Emily had this idea, what if we do Eurosky, but for science apps? So it's kind of like, do this portal, give people a PDS, maybe it's like, your name.researcher.social or something like that. You have your own login, and we have this portal with all these apps. And that was also like a really interesting development that we weren't expecting. April, this was also in Vancouver, we started hacking with Jared and the Leaflet crew on page parts. And it's like, okay, this is neat. Like, we can start building note-taking apps that have these integrations, and like we were thinking in Semble, do we need to do note-taking, or is that going to happen outside of Semble? And it's like, okay, maybe it can actually be just integrating with other tools. Yeah, so at this point, yeah, this is Chris, who's a close friend and collaborator, asking about atproto. It's a post-app protocol, perhaps, trapped in a world of apps. So yeah, this is the question we're kind of with today, is are we building an app, or are we building an ecosystem, or both? And it turns out that a lot of the things we talked about in September in that road mapping session, it's like, okay, some of it is we're doing at Semble, but a lot of it is also happening in the ecosystem. And yeah, this is just all new and surprising and interesting, and we're trying to figure out like how this works. So yeah, you can see here like annotations and PDS for researchers and things that the ecosystem is doing. And also, yeah, just how do we fund any of this? Like, ecosystem building is cool, but like, is it going to help us get like long-term sustainability for all this? And one idea we had recently was just being able to fund each other more, and this is taking inspiration from just like circular funding and circular economy kind of thing, where it's like, what if we had subscriptions on our apps, and then you can, part of your subscription funding goes to like the ecosystem, and you can choose like who are you, if you want to route it to someone, or just like donate to the pool. So that's something we're interested in experimenting with. I don't know if anyone else has ideas here, we'd be happy to chat. Idea 2 here is, this is another thing that came up in Vancouver. It's like, what if we could fund this big fish instead of the individual orgs? Is there a there where you invest in like these larger ecosystems? Is there something we can pitch to VCs or philanthropies? And I've started to take this really seriously. How much time do I have? Okay. Yeah, I started to take this really seriously with like philanthropies, because I started working with this group called Renaissance Philanthropy. Anyone heard of Renaissance Philanthropy? Yeah. Cool, okay, yeah, cool. So Renaissance Philanthropy is this like very forward-thinking philanthropy. They're very focused on science and tech. The idea is to pitch ambitious R&D programs that they realize that a lot of stuff is not happening, and it won't happen from like traditional academia, it won't happen in startups, it won't happen in traditional philanthropy. They give some rationale, like they have a great blog post recently, they wrote about this. There's a lot that needs to happen to tackle complex problems. So they say like no venture fund, however sophisticated, attempts to simultaneously advance the underlying science, create new organizations to translate it, convene the ecosystem of stakeholders needed to act on it, shape the policy environment, and build the market conditions for adoption. I'm looking at this like, that sounds kind of like atproto. So this is what we're trying to pitch to Renaissance philanthropy in this program, that atproto is the future of science publishing and communication, with a few other things, but yeah, we can leave those for later. But this is also, again, really interesting because this blog post is a blog post by people that are not in atproto native. They're we invited them to Vancouver. They're people that are working on like new publishing tools for scientists, and they looked at atproto and they're like, atproto is really cool because it maps remarkably well onto the problem scientific publishing has been struggling with for decades. So it's like, okay, this is interesting. Like maybe there is some convergence here. And yeah, so this is exciting for philanthropy. I think a lot of us, we're working with the community of scientists, and a lot of us are just working with other communities, and we need to think if this works with like investors. I think there's some investors here in the room. Are there investors in the room? Yeah, okay, there's some. So yeah, I'd love to talk about that too. Yeah, this is something from Rudy that hangs above my bed. Community is the only moat. And yeah, open source, there's something interesting happening with AI and open source that, yeah, the moat becomes community and care and maintenance, and yeah, and I think it's a new world that we're still figuring out, but it feels like there's a there. We can just build things together. This is just a random thought that if anyone is like a biology nerd, then I'll just finish with this like random thought that, yeah, there's an interesting thing in like evolutionary biology where there's this theory of like the major evolutionary transitions that it happened exactly 8 times in the evolution of living things on Earth, and it was like RNA to DNA, DNA to cells, cells to I think like organisms and so on, right? Like you get humans eventually, and like culture, societies from like individual human tribes. Basically each time the thing that they noticed was there's 2 common patterns. One is that there's a new form of cooperation that creates a new functional entity. So like things that weren't previously part of the same organism become part of the same organism, like cell to multicell. And there's a new form of communication that supports that cooperation. And I just have a sense that atproto is kind of, it feels like this post-app energy. So yeah, there's just a thought to leave us with. And I don't have anything else to say about this, but yeah, thank you.